Welcome. This is your quiet space tonight. Before we begin, take a slow breath in and slowly breathe out. Feel your shoulders loosen. Feel the weight of the day fade away. Let yourself sink into comfort, into warmth, into stillness. Tonight, I will take you somewhere quiet, somewhere deep, somewhere soft and shimmering, where the world above and the world below meet like a dream. Tonight, we drift into the gentle waves of the Little Mermaid. Far beneath the deep blue sea, deeper than any ship had sailed, deeper than sunlight had ever touched, there lay a magical kingdom made of coral and pearl. Its halls shimmered like dream light. And in that underwater palace lived the Sea King, his mother, and his 6 daughters, the princesses of the ocean. The youngest of them, the one with the softest heart and the clearest eyes, was known simply as the Little Mermaid. She was more delicate, more thoughtful, and more curious than her sisters. Her skin was as clear as a drop of seawater, and her voice, oh, her voice, was the most beautiful sound in all the oceans. Even the fishes stopped to listen when she sang. But unlike her sisters, she longed for one thing more than pearls, more than treasures, more than the wonders of the sea. She longed for the world above. She longed for the sunlight she had never seen, the wind she had never felt, and for the humans whose stories she heard from her grandmother, old tales of people with legs instead of tails, people who lived beneath the stars on land. Every time her sisters returned from their first visit to the world above, they described what they saw: the moon rising above the sea, the ships that danced across the waves, the music that drifted down from decks lit with lanterns. The Little Mermaid listened in silent longing. Each mermaid could visit the surface only after turning 15, and one by one, each sister reached that age. They returned with stories of clouds, sunsets, birds, and storms. And finally, the day came when the Little Mermaid turned 15. Her grandmother placed a white flower in her long flowing hair, and the Little Mermaid swam upward, higher and higher, until the water grew lighter, warmer, thinner, and then she broke the surface of the sea. She gasped softly. Above her stretched a sky of violet and gold. The sun was setting. The air smelled different, sharp and sweet at the same time. For the first time in her life, she felt wind against her face. Then suddenly she saw a great ship not far away, decorated with flags and glowing lanterns. Music drifted over the waves. Laughter rose into the sky. Curious, she swam closer. On the ship, a celebration was underway: fireworks, dancing, people cheering. At the center of it stood a young man with dark hair and bright eyes. He was handsome, gentle, noble in posture. He was a prince. The Little Mermaid watched him with wonder. He looked so kind, so joyful, so alive. Her heart filled with something warm, something she had no name for. As the night deepened, the winds grew strong. Waves rose and the ship began to shake. A sudden storm struck. Lightning tore through the sky. The ship cracked. Lanterns shattered. People screamed. The Little Mermaid dove toward the chaos. A wave hit the prince, throwing him overboard. He sank fast, unconscious. With powerful strokes, she swam to him, wrapped an arm around his waist, and carried him upward, fighting the storm, fighting the dark, fighting the sea's fury. Finally, she reached the shore. She placed him gently on warm sand. She brushed his hair away from his forehead. She sang softly, her voice like the sea's lullaby. The prince breathed, once weakly. Life returned to him. But other humans approached, girls from a nearby temple. Fearing she would be seen, the little mermaid slipped into the water and hid behind a rock. She watched as the prince opened his eyes, waking not to her, but to the human girl who had found him. The little mermaid's heart ached. But she smiled softly, for he was alive. For days afterward, she could think of nothing else. She spent hours near the shore where she left him. She longed to walk beside him, to speak to him, to feel the world he lived in. And slowly, painfully, she understood something. She loved him. She loved him more than the sea, more than the world she knew, and more than her own life. But there was a truth her grandmother had once told her. Humans live far shorter lives than we do. But when they die, their souls rise to the heavens. We mermaids live for 300 years. But when we die, we turn into sea foam. The little mermaid trembled. She wanted to be with the prince. She wanted to walk where he walked, breathe the air he breathed. She wanted a human soul. And there was only one being who could give it to her. The Sea Witch. Though feared by all, the Sea Witch's power was real. So one night, with her heart pounding like a storm, the little mermaid swam to the dark part of the ocean, past sea serpents, past thorny plants, past creatures that whispered warnings. The Sea Witch awaited her, smiling with sharp teeth. "I know what you want," the witch said. "You want a human soul. You want the prince." The little mermaid nodded silently. "I can give you legs," the witch said, "but the pain will be like walking on knives. Every step will feel like fire. And if the prince marries someone else, your heart will break, and you will turn into sea foam." The little mermaid trembled, but she did not step back. "Also," the witch hissed, "I want your voice." Her voice, the most beautiful in the sea. But the little mermaid agreed. For love. For hope. For the prince. The Sea Witch brewed a potion, dark and swirling. The little mermaid drank it. A searing pain shot through her body. Her tail split into legs. She fainted. When she awoke, the prince found her, a silent, beautiful girl lying on the shore. He took her into his palace with kindness and curiosity. Though she could not speak, she smiled at him. She walked beside him through gardens, ignoring the pain that burned her feet like fire. The prince grew fond of her, very fond, but only as a dear friend. His heart, however, belonged to someone else. To the girl he believed had saved his life. The girl from the temple. And when time passed, the king arranged a marriage between the prince and that same young woman. The days that followed were unbearably painful for the little mermaid. The king's announcement echoed in her heart again and again. The prince would marry the girl from the temple. The girl he believed had saved his life. The girl whose face had greeted him when he first opened his eyes. The little mermaid stood beside him as the royal plans unfolded. She smiled. She nodded. She walked gracefully at his side. But inside, her heart felt fragile, as if it were made of sea glass. The morning of the wedding came. Soft sunlight touched the prince's palace. The air carried music and flowers and the quiet excitement of celebration. The little mermaid dressed in a flowing gown the maids had given her. Simple, white, and delicate, like a last breath of foam upon the sea. She followed the prince onto the grand wedding ship. The vessel decorated with lanterns and silk ribbons, its sails golden under the rising sun. People filled the deck with joy. Laughter blossomed like fireworks. The bride, gentle and kind, smiled shyly as the prince held her hand. And the little mermaid stood a few steps behind them, silent, graceful, invisible in her grief. As the sun dipped lower, a celebration began. Musicians played soft melodies, and the ship rocked gently on the quiet waves. The guests began to dance. The prince turned to the little mermaid, his eyes warm with affection, the affection of a dear friend, the affection of someone who had no idea how deeply he was loved. "Come," he said softly, "dance with us. You are the brightest joy of my heart. No one dances as beautifully as you do." His words were tender. His smile was kind. And they broke her, because she loved him too much to refuse. She stepped forward. The music swelled gently, and she danced. Slow, graceful movements, arms drifting like waves, steps light as moonbeams. But every time her foot touched the deck, a flash of pain shot through her, sharp, burning, piercing, as if she were walking on blades of glass. Yet she kept dancing, her smile soft, her eyes bright, her movements fluid and beautiful. Guests whispered in awe, "Look how gracefully she moves. She's like a spirit of the sea. Her beauty, her poise, it's breathtaking." They admired her, and she danced on, her heart breaking so quietly that even the sea could not hear it. The prince watched her with gentle admiration. He clapped softly when the song ended. He took her hand and said kindly, "You are always near me, always bringing light to my days. I hope you will be as happy as I am tonight." She smiled, a smile carved from sorrow, and bowed her head. Around her, the wedding celebration glowed like a dream. But inside her heart, the world was quiet, and dim, and full of farewell. Because she knew something no one else knew. At sunrise, when the new day arrived, she would turn into sea foam. And so she danced, one last time, under lantern light, with a heart full of love, and a soul full of pain. That night, as the newlyweds slept on the ship, the sea grew restless. The little mermaid did not sleep. She stood alone on the deck, looking out at the dark sea. Her heart felt heavy. Tomorrow morning, when the sun rose, she would turn into sea foam. That was the price of the spell. The prince had married someone else, and now her time was almost over. She thought about her home under the sea, her father sitting on his throne, her grandmother telling stories, her sisters swimming in the gardens of coral. She missed them all so much. As she stood there, remembering her family, she suddenly heard soft voices calling her name. She turned quickly. Out of the dark water, her 5 sisters rose to the surface. But something was different. Their long, beautiful hair was gone, cut short. They had traded it to the sea witch to help her. Their faces were full of worry and sadness. They held out a sharp dagger made of silver. "Take this," they whispered. "If you kill the prince before sunrise and let his blood touch your feet, the spell will break. You will become a mermaid again. You will live. Please, save yourself." The little mermaid looked at the dagger. She looked at her sisters' tired, tearful faces. They had done so much for her, given up something precious, risked everything, all for her life. She took the dagger quietly. Her sisters sank back into the waves, waiting hopefully. The little mermaid walked slowly across the sleeping ship. Everyone was resting. The lanterns were dim. The night was still. She reached the prince's room. He was asleep beside his new bride, holding her hand gently. He looked peaceful, happy, safe. The little mermaid stood beside him for a long time. She held the dagger in her hand, but her fingers shook. This was the only way to save herself. But she loved him too much to harm him. She bent down and gave him a soft, silent kiss on his forehead. Then she stepped back. She knew she could never hurt him. She walked out of the room, went back to the deck, and looked at the sea one last time. The sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn was coming. She lifted the dagger and threw it far into the waves. It disappeared in an instant. Her sister's cries rose from the water below, full of deep sadness, but she had already made her choice. She climbed up onto the edge of the ship. The first ray of sunlight touched the sky, and she let herself fall gently into the sea. The little mermaid's body turned into soft foam. She did not feel pain. She only felt light, light as air, light as a breath. But the story did not end there. As dawn touched the sky, the foam shimmered, rising like mist. Soft, glowing spirits lifted her, their voices warm like wind. She had done the most selfless thing a being could do. She had chosen love over life. She had earned something no mermaid ever had. A chance. Not as a mermaid, not as a human, but as a spirit of the air, rising upward, gaining a soul through kindness. She hovered above the world, watching the sunrise, feeling light for the first time. She had lost everything. Yet she had gained what she once thought impossible. A soul that could rise to heaven. And some say that even today, sometimes on quiet evenings, when the waves are soft, and the wind carries the scent of the sea, you may feel a gentle presence of a young girl near the shore, a soft shimmer in the air, a whisper of a beautiful song, as if someone, somewhere, is singing with a heart full of longing.